been a Pentagon correspondent for 28 years, and I've never seen any kind of restrictions like this. The benefit of being a Pentagon correspondent in the past was we could basically pretty much go anywhere in the building we wanted to, outside of very secure areas like the National Military Command Center, where they oversee ongoing operations, or a secret meeting room called the Tank, where the Joint Chiefs meet. But other than that, it was sort of like a big city hall. I tell people we could kind of go anywhere we wanted in the building. And the benefit is you run into people, you have little chats in the hallway about what's going on, what are you hearing out there? And a lot of times it could be offering directions for the stories we're working on. I may say, hey, I'm hearing this. And a civilian or a military officer could say, well, Tom, that's half true. You don't really have it right. You want to head in this direction, not that direction. So I think what the administration is kind of saying is we're running around grabbing classified information, and that's just not true. It's, again, talking to people, talking to sources about what's going on, what's being done in our name with our money, and more importantly, are you going to send your sons and daughters into harm's way? And how are you going to explain it to us? Through, because we, of course, represent the American people. And if you look at what's going on in Venezuela now, they've had 5 or 6 attacks on these supposed drug boats. Now, back in the day, we would have a background briefing. Why are you doing this? What's your evidence? Clearly, a lot of it's classified, but you can always talk about something. And that would always happen in the past during military operations. We'd at least get a background briefing where you can say a defense official said this or that, or get an on-the-record briefing. And we would often have briefings at least once a week with officials. So Defense Secretary Hegseth has been around for about 9 months. We've had only 2 Pentagon briefings from him. That's just not good enough. I mean, there's some things that have to remain secret, exactly when, obviously, operational security, you're not going to report, oh, tomorrow there's going to be an attack on Yemen. And they wouldn't tell us that. But there's always something you can tell people about military operations. Some of it clearly has to remain secret. For example, with the Venezuelan, supposed drug boat attacks, you can at least give us a sense of how do you know these are drug boats? Where did they come from? Who's on the boats? Even Capitol Hill is only getting a trickle of information about this. So again, there are certain things that are classified, but you can always talk about something. I don't see how they can be worse. They kicked us out of the building. They're not having any briefings, really, no background briefings. So it's really been just silence from the Pentagon. Now, we do have a lot of sources within the military, retired community. I'm reaching out more to Capitol Hill and also to some of the embassies in Washington to try to find out what's going on. So we'll do workarounds to really do our jobs, but it is hampering our ability to do our jobs, and we're basically going to have to find ways to find out what's going on, or we're all going to keep digging and doing our jobs. Now, we're told that if they do ever have briefings, we can request access to that briefing. But again, Secretary Hegseth has had only 2 briefings in the past 9 or 10 months. So I don't see him actually going out and giving any briefings. He feels much more comfortable working with partisan podcasts and partisan media like Fox News. So I don't see him ever having a briefing. And I think part of this is he has less experience than any Secretary of Defense or Secretary of War in our history. He just doesn't see. Most of the people who have held these jobs were either, senior military officials, or they came from industry, or they came from politics. And again, he has very, very little experience, less experience than any in our history. And I went back and looked at every single biography of every Secretary of War, Secretary of Defense, hands down, much, much less experience, virtually no experience. I saw the comments, from Pete, Defense Secretary Hegseth, about them. Everyone's focused on the press policy. No one's giving President Trump enough credit. I think that's patently ridiculous. The fact is that a lot of media, organizations have given him a lot of credit. It's remarkable that you're able to get these hostages out. I mean, it was an incredible achievement. I mean, the challenge is going down the road. Can you disarm Hamas? And if that's so, where do they go? And so forth. So, yeah, to say you're not giving Trump enough praise, number one, is ridiculous. And number two is, you know, no one should tell us what kind of stories we should do. No administration should say, give me more praise. You're not an editor for our organization. You're a politician. So let's ease up on telling us what to report. And the other thing is, I think a lot of this has to do with Defense Secretary Hegseth. There's been some negative press about him because his office clearly is in disarray. He's had a lot of firings of people. And also, he's said to admirals and generals in the Pentagon, I can polygraph you. So it clearly is a troubled, his tenure so far has been very, very troubled and dysfunctional. There's absolutely no question about that. So I think that may be at the root of some of this. He's frustrated at the legitimate attacks on him. And also, he talks about, passing on classified information and so forth. He has been the one accused of passing on classified information. There's an Inspector General's report about him because he shared highly classified information about U.S. strikes on Yemen on Signal, which, of course, is not a secure channel. And not only that, he did it on two occasions. And some of the people who received it on this unsecured system, Signal, included his wife and brother. And a lot of people reached out to me and said they were really upset about that. Retired people, active duty people, and said, Tom, if I did that, I would at least lose my security clearance and maybe go to jail. But that report, I'm told, has been completed, the Inspector General report, over a month ago. It's sitting on his desk, and it has not been sent to Capitol Hill, which called for this investigative report. Everybody I know supported what we did. My colleagues at NPR and my colleagues who covered the Pentagon with me. Nobody was going to sign that restrictive agreement, which basically said you cannot solicit information from anybody who works at the Pentagon. So I can't reach out to people I know saying, hey, what's going on with the Venezuela drug boats? What can you tell me about Army recruiting? We would have to wait until the Pentagon released information. And then that's the only way we could report. And that's not reporting, that's stenography. That bars us from doing our jobs as journalists. Every government has something to hide. And it's our job to find out what's going on and why. And again, in our name, with our money, and where are you sending our sons and daughters? Every government wants to control information. Every government wants to withhold information because if it's an embarrassment, not necessarily a secret.